Well, hello, everybody. I'm Paul Hagen from Aspire Design and Home magazine, and I'm pleased to welcome you today to a very special conversation about collaboration that we'll be having with two exciting minds from the world of design. To that conversation, we welcome Michael Daddio of M. Daddio Artisan Builders. How are you, Michael?
Good, Paul. How are you?
Very well. And from Bachman Brown Design, Bachman Brown Clem. How's it going, Bachman?
Hi, Paul. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So to clarify for our audience, we're not necessarily here to discuss Michael and Bachman working together, although if the conversation goes well, who knows. Today's conversation was actually inspired by two projects that each of them worked on with a collaborator of their own, and we ended up featuring in the fall issue of Aspire Design and Home magazine, which if you haven't gotten your copy yet, you can pick up the stories on aspiremetro.com. So I thought we'd start by focusing on each of the projects individually and then see how it evolves into a little more about the nature of collaboration. Michael, you were working on a Manhattan apartment that was very, one might say, too old New York, and opening it up a bit along with Benjamin Andres on interior design and architecture. How did you approach working on this project with Benjamin?
It was an interesting project. Benjamin came to me and we started to discuss the project that he had a client on Fifth Avenue at 865th, and the clients gave us a very specific inspiration kind of comment. They said they wanted to have an urban surf shack. So that was kind of new to me. I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island, so I knew what a surf shack looked like, but I had never executed or kind of tried to envision what an urban surf shack might look like on Fifth Avenue overlooking the park. Mm-hmm. So Ben and I kind of talked a lot about what the design would look like, how we could possibly create this kind of vision. So he started to talk about tones and colors and textures and different types of wood products. And we started to think about, well, how could our mill workshop actually execute some of these soft textures that might be reminiscent of a surf shack. And that was kind of the inspiration and how the conversation started. And then from there, we continue to create a project budget. Every project, no matter what the inspiration is, always has some sort of budgetary components to it. And we work together very closely to create a project bid that kind of executed a set of drawings that Ben had beautifully created.
Very cool. It's an extraordinary transformation. I do want to take a moment to pop over to Bachman. Bachman, you were working with architect Alexander Gorlin on, I believe, his own Greenwich Village penthouse. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Alex and I had been friends for a while, and he had bought this apartment and knew exactly what he wanted to do with the design of the apartment, but with the interiors, not so much. And so I've collaborated with a lot of architects and a lot of contractors on projects, artists, what have you, but I've never actually had an architect collaborate with me on their own space. And so it was a very interesting project to do. And the freedom that I was actually given was really fun, because I think he has a very sort of kooky, fun personality, and I think he really wanted that to come through, and it still wanted to be a clean, modernist, very sharp space, but he really wanted his own personality to really come through in that, and I think it was really honored that he trusted me.
Yeah, I think your camaraderie is clear in the article, and I have some quotes I'm going to be asking you about later, all in the spirit of fun. So, Michael, okay, the drasticness of the reorganization was incredible, with the living room becoming the kitchen and nearly every door coming off its hinges. Is there a moment where you look at a plan like this and wonder if perhaps you and your collaborator have been a little too ambitious?
That's an interesting question. I actually feel like that on most projects, that everything has gets from a seed, it just starts to grow into something, that's more and more. And no matter what the constraints of scope or budget is, I think the big wow, you're at it kind of mentality just permeates most projects. So just kind of, understanding that you start with like this, how do we have these elements of design? How can we execute them so that they will create a space that the client is interested in, and then all of a sudden it turned into while we're at it, we might as well gut this place because we've got to redo all of the doors, and we have to make sure that we have a cerused oak kitchen that matches nicely with with an oak floor, and then all of a sudden the client starts seeing these ideas, and it just kind of becomes its own full gut renovation.
I am going to come back to that kitchen because it is a work of genius. Okay, first quote for Bachman. In the Inspire article, Alexander mentions at some point you were able to achieve some savings in the budget by creating a piece of art, and kudos to you on that. And then immediately follows it up with, quote, all of that went to Bachman's furniture selections. So I'm wondering, would it be fair to say that Alex thinks you have rarefied, refined, extravagant, maybe even taste in furniture?
Very, very, very expensive. Yes.
Tell me about some of it.
He would. I would call him and I'd be like, I have the perfect lamp for the living room. Like put everything on hold. Stop the presses. I have a perfect lamp. And he's like, how much is it? He's like, oh. Well, so it was fun. I mean, we do this all in jest because we're really good friends. But it was there were some key pieces that we wanted to spend a little extra on.
I mean, to be fair, he did start out the project by saying he wanted a Saran table. So
exactly. I mean,
that's not a low ticket item.
That is not a low ticket item. No, it is not.
Awesome. Oh, hello. And we'll get on to more of your selections later. Michael, one of the things I couldn't help but notice about the finished project is that profusion of light materials. You were mentioning all the blonde woods and the white. I'm wondering, for you as someone who is going to be moving into a space and working in there, and it's a process that can get dirty, does being presented with a plan like that feel almost like a dare? Like, can you get this all done without leaving a mark?
Well, I find that no matter how good of a job you do on a project, your punch list is always the same size, no matter what you do. And what we tell all of our clients all the time is that this is not construction; it's not perfect. We're kind of honest and transparent communicators is how we present our firm, and that's kind of and a promise to do work that's second to none. But the reality is, as you're working amongst level 5 finishes, and you're standing floors, and you're trying to have all of the integrations of these different elements of beautifully designed and detailed finishes come together, it's not perfect. And that's why they make a little bit of touch up, and that's why we're always trying to figure out how do we best sequence these beautiful finishes to be installed in a way that they won't be subject to damage during the course of construction, creating sizes of cabinetry and finishes that'll actually fit into a Fifth Avenue elevator, which has a ton of engineering involved. And we're thinking about how do we execute a 20-foot long piece of white oak fascia board that's contained within the kitchen, and how do we put it into an elevator that doesn't fit more than something that's about 8 feet long, and how do all these components come together? So we try really hard, and I think we're very, very prideful. We love the way to get as close as we can to perfect, but I think the reality is nothing is just perfect.
I'm so fascinated now imagining you trying to get those materials into that elevator. Did you bend space and time?
Well, we actually cut down pieces, made it smaller, and put little nice reveal joints in them. So, you kind of plan for the imperfection. And if you can, think forward to what wood's actually going to do, then you can, you can better execute something that'll kind of stand the test of time.
Plan for the imperfection. I think I'm going to make that my new life motto. So, okay, Bachman, let's talk about this bed. You've got an upholstered headboard that extends way beyond the bed. The bed itself also kind of juts out past anything that might be delineated by the curtain as private space. What did you or Alex have any trepidation about such an unusual, or let's say non-traditional bed placement?
No, actually, there was no trepidation. It was, we were pretty determined to sort of try something a little different with this, and try to create the spaces a little more almost bohemian. And the reference for the bed was actually Eileen Gray's villa in the south of France. And she did something very similar. The headboard sort of extended well beyond, and I mean, we did add the really wild mirrors up above that were pretty awesome. But the mirror was actually mainly just to reflect the view. Like, so when you're sitting in the living room, or you're sitting in a chair and you're facing the opposite direction of the window, you can look in the mirror and then see straight back out. So yeah, no, it's a wild setup, but I feel like we did something that nobody else has ever seen before. So I was pretty proud of that.
I think you've definitely achieved that. And I think the mirrors are also very sexy, whatever they're reflecting. I wanted to ask both of you, so coming off the heels of these collaborations, as you look forward to future collaborations, what might an ideal collaborator look like for you? What qualities would you hope that they'd be able to bring out of you? And what qualities would you hope that they'd bring to the table? Michael, why don't we start with you?
Sure. The most successful thing in any sort of collaboration is team. And whenever we're talking with designers, architects, clients, we want to make sure that the team is all kind of aligned. Going back to, this is not a game of perfect. We want to make sure that everybody is aligned, that we have the same vision. We very much try to look at these projects through the inspiration of the designers and architects that we work for. And as we look at problems that arise, we want to think, well, what might Bachman do in this scenario? How would this detail actually reflect what the rest of the project is intended to look like? And let's present some solutions. And in that same kind of thought process, we want to make sure that all the people that we would be collaborating with approach these details where we can think of them collectively and come up with what makes the best execution from a construction standpoint, and still looks beautiful and fits the design parameters of the space. So I think teamwork is the most important part of any sort of collaboration.
Lovely. Same question to you, Bachman. What are you looking for in an ideal collaborator, and what do you hope that they draw out of you?
Well, I was thinking of the question in a much more sort of, dreamy way of like, well, who's my favorite? Who's somebody who I would aspire to be? It's more, I think, a category. I would love to be more I'd love to do more collaborations with like artists and architects, design, people in the design industry. Because I think when you combine those two minds, I think most people are scared of it because, you've got competing ideas, but I've actually only had great experiences. And because I feel like when you get another creative mind, it's just, the ideas just sort of build on one on top of one another. So, but I actually agree with Mike. I think, it's all about the team. I mean, if you really want like the most successful project, it's all about putting together the right team that, are communicating and collaborating and are all in sync with one another. So I think Mike's got it down pat.
Since you mentioned it though, did anyone in particular come to mind when I asked the question? It seems like someone did, maybe.
No, I was actually just thinking of this interior designer who I now cannot remember. This interior designer did Jack Pearson's apartment in the West Village, and it is stunning, just absolutely stunning. And I cannot remember his name. Oh my God.
Maybe we can find it and insert it later. And hey, that's what Google's for, right? We're sending people running to their phones, Googling that apartment. Gosh, how much of my life do I spend doing that? So to bring it back to the projects that we started with, I know we're focusing on collaboration, but I thought I would put it to you a little bit more generally. What are some of the big takeaways, whether it's like lessons learned, challenges overcome? Like I said, whether it relates to collaboration or not, how did you walk away from these projects a little bit different, more evolved, let's say?
I think one thing I've really learned is it's when you're collaborating specifically with people like in the design industry, there's a level of communication that changes. Whereas if you're designing a space for, a numbers guy down at Wall Street, it's, the way that you present to them is very different than the way that you can speak to, somebody who's in your industry. So I think the communication was pleasantly, the conversations just seemed to flow a lot differently than my normal projects, which I loved.
Nice. Same question to you, Michael. What are your takeaways from working on this pied-a-terre?
Every time I work on a new project with an architect or a designer, similar to what Bachman said, you're kind of learning from one another, and it should never feel like there's any sort of errors about the conversation. I think when you just talk openly and honestly about all of your past experience, what you know, and you go through a project with somebody, you end up realizing that everybody's got a beautiful detail to share. And I've always thought of myself as kind of a sponge. And with everybody that I've worked for, worked with, worked alongside, in any type of relationship it was, I've always learned something and took that away to another project. So we would find a great pocket door detail, and all of a sudden I would have another architect say, well, I detailed it a little bit like this in a different way, that, and then we would take all these little bits and pieces from kind of the world in which we've lived in, and all of the people in which we've collaborated with, and we bring all of that to all of our projects. So one of the things I love about going through a project like this and all of the challenges is just taking away all of the details of how to execute something a little bit better.
Very, very, very nice. So I have a spicy question, and I'm not asking you guys to tell tales out of school, so take it however you want. But when you are working in a collaborative environment, how do you approach differences of opinion with your collaborator, whether it's an expectation that you don't think is meetable or a taste level situation? And you can be as vague or specific if there's some challenge you ran into on the project. But yeah, how do you approach the idea of resolving a difference of opinion? Why don't we start with you, Bachman?
Well, think it's all about pick your battles.
Okay.
You have to, sort of pick the battles that you really want to fight on. I think that's what collaboration is you have the set of things that you're very passionate about that you want to make sure happen and are a part of the design. And then you also have pieces of the puzzle that, if other people have more opinion or more opinionated about them, you let them take the lead on that. So it's about a give and take.
Nice.
But pick your battles if you want to win the war.
I can only imagine some of the battles that may have gone on in the construction process. Same question to you, Michael. What do you think? How do you go about resolving issues with your collaborator?
Picking battles is definitely a good answer, Bachman. When I think about projects and I look back on them, I realize that our projects, they might take 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, and sometimes even not wanting to admit it, sometimes longer, depending on a number of different factors. And I think we have to all understand that we're all human, and when we live with our projects for as long as we do, we deal with the emotional ups and downs that we all have ourselves. So I think just kind of understanding that we're all human, that we're going to show up on our good days, we're going to show up on our bad days, and just trying to have a bit of empathy for whatever somebody is focused on, and trying to understand why they're coming at the situation from that particular point of view. So nothing in particular I think to point out for me, but there are ups and downs in every project. It's you get to see our clients have babies. You get to see them before, you get to see them. Hopefully, we meet the deadline, and they're, we see them afterwards just to say hello. But we see them before their pregnancies, afterwards. We have, we just see people at their best and at their worst. And
I'm watching clients' kids go to college right now. It's
I know, yeah.
Oh,
never felt older in my life.
I was gonna say you don't look old enough for that to be true, but I'll take your word for
A
it.
good skin regimen.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot give enough claps to a good skin regimen. Thank God I started working on writing grooming articles at an early age. So a question I like to always ask toward the end of any conversation like this is to put it to you guys, is there something, whether it's about these projects or about collaboration in general, or perhaps other collaborations that I haven't asked you about, that you have something that you'd like to share about?
I like this topic, and I like to see more collaborations. I mean, I like to see collaborations in everything. Like, I mean, Rick Owens and Birkenstock. I mean, that was one hell of a collaboration, and then there's different designers that when they get together and design a collection, and when designers combine offices, or there's so many ways that you see the benefits, and I think collaboration is a very important part of our industry and needs to be talked about more, because I think it needs to happen more.
I agree, and in fact, I do want to come to you on the same question, Michael. But I was thinking as we were approaching this panel, I think most people in the industry would say it's hard enough to evolve a brand that reflects your own point of view, and then it's quite another to then take that brand and make it flexible enough to incorporate the ideas of another individual or brand. Is there a danger in that? Do you feel a sense of like, oh, what if the ultimate result doesn't reflect me as much as my own work?
Well, I think it depends on your own ego. I mean, I find that my work is not so reflective of me per se. I feel like each of my projects on my website, which is very out of date, but they're all extremely different. Every project has its own personality, has its own stamp. It's very modern, traditional, contemporary. I think that for me, it's not about me wanting my own. Yes, I would love to design, and I have designed custom pieces, custom lighting, but and those are a part of me. But I do like the fact that they are still custom for that client, for that personality. So for me, I think that has to do with a lot with ego, and whether that's what you're looking for, and it's about your brand and your brand only, or if it's just generally about your future and what you want to leave in the world. And sometimes what you leave in the world can be a collaboration.
Oh, I love that. Same question back to you, Michael. Anything you wanted to share, whether it was about working with Benjamin or just about the art of collaboration in general?
I was so I had something to say, and then I was listening to Bachman. I was really kind of like, I like what you had to say. I think a client of mine the other day called me a frustrated designer. It is, I admit this to all my clients. I am not a designer, but I love design, and I think it's important to know what you're good at, and be honest about that, and to make sure that your collaboration team all has the different parts and pieces to make for a great collaboration and a great project. We as builders don't really have much more besides putting a stamp of quality behind everything that we do. We don't design, we don't architect. We can engineer, we can provide details, we can help engineer design, but you know, we don't have a particular style or taste of our own. We're executing projects in historic areas and Village of Sag Harbor. We're working in upstate New York, Connecticut, Manhattan, in Brooklyn, and townhouses. So I kind of love the variety of different types of projects and just collaborating with all different types of people that have different levels of experience and learning from everybody.
You know, mentioning your inner designer brought back a quote actually from your article where you were talking about the effect that was achieved in the kitchen with the cabinetry, with, you know, this sort of kind of clean lines, and I think of it as like a Scandinavian morning. And you had said something very simple and beautiful. You had said, you know, when you look at it and how we were able to realize the architect's vision for that kind of space, there's an art in that, you had said. And I was wondering if you might expand a little bit on that. What did you mean when you said there was an art in putting that kitchen together?
Well, I think in its most bare form, you have in our millwork shop, we are literally putting paint finishes and samples and finish and woods together. We're picking veneers by hand. We're picking solid wood by hand, and then we're trying to get to the a color that's either approved by by Benjamin or designer or the architect. And in order to get there, we really have to try to, it's very much an art. We could go through 3, 4, 5, a dozen finish samples in order to come up with something that kind of just kind of nails what the initial vision of the designer was. So, we try our best to kind of get there, but in some instances, there's just it's a natural progression to getting to where you are.
Yeah, you definitely got design in the soul. I see it too. I know what these folks are talking about. Well, we're coming to the end of our time together, sadly, because I'm enjoying this conversation and we could go on all day. But before we left, I did want to give you guys a chance to let folks who are watching us know where they could keep up with you online, whether it would be a website, social medias, wherever you would like them to follow you to keep up with all the exciting projects you're working on. Do you want to go first, Michael?
Sure. The best way to get in touch with us or see what we're doing is at mdaddio.com on our website and on Instagram as well. Very
nice. And Mr. Clem, how about you?
Best place to come see our work is our website as well, bachmanbrowndesign.com. And then also we're on Instagram as well for Bachman Brown Design. And yes, that's it.
Excellent. Yes, indeed. I will be on the lookout for them. I'll be following, and I hope everyone who's watching will too. In the meantime, everyone is invited to go read about and see beautiful imagery of these gentlemen's work. The projects are in articles at aspiremetro.com. We are also Aspire Design and Home on Instagram, where I am also at Mr. Paul Hagen. And I'm so grateful that everyone could join us again. Thanks again to Michael Daddio, and thanks to Bachman Clem. And until we meet again, I hope you all have a very beautiful day.